I just did a podcast alleging that Richard Milhouse Nixon did not have to quit, did not have to resign, that his resignation and humiliation were precipitated by his belief, however errant his behavior as president proved to be, that etiquette and protocol and the United States of America superseded his narcissism and his drive for power, at least to the point where he had crossed that proverbial line. He knew he had a debt to the Constitution due, and he bowed out. But as I allege, he didn't have to. There were no laws forcing Richard Nixon to resign. He chose to resign because he had apparently lost support of his Republican base in Congress. But they could have been won back over, and the entire operating system of the presidency, and for that matter, of marketing and PR and communications, the acceptable and unacceptable perceived mores of American society, well, as I argue, these can be quite ad hoc and arbitrary. And who really is setting the rules? Now I'd like to take a second to talk about the other part of my rant, which was focused on Trump and Elon Musk, who, I also argued, learned from Nixon's mistake. Why listen to convention? Why adhere to the rules set forward by mere etiquette and protocol when you personally have vast power which is not clearly delineated by said Constitution? Just go for it. Who says how a president should or shouldn't behave? And if we've learned anything in this age of attention, then not behaving empowers an influencer all the more by creating this absurdist projection of the hidden and often repressed desires of millions, billions of people online who feed off of such a troll's audacity. I want to be like Donald Trump. I want to be like Elon Musk. I want to be the world's richest man. I want to be the world's most powerful man. And I want to act with similar impunity. That is fascinating. That is a direct consequence of two things: the advent of social media, where everyone can broadcast and the most powerful can cut a swath and create their own audience breaking these rules, and in turn, as its own feedback loop, the conventions and the mores and the traditions of our society are skewed. And maybe they're not even skewed, they're simply exposed, naked, and raw like never before. And why? Because everyone's given a voice. We have enhanced transparency, I believe, more than we have transformed traditional values. We've opened up floodgates which were forcibly closed because the technology didn't exist to rant, to tweet, to troll. And we are now in the age of the troll, and it's only just beginning. So, with that setup, let's take a closer look at Elon Musk for starters, the idiot savant in the truest sense of that word, the enfant terrible of technology, and see him as a fetishized brat, but also an industry titan. Because, yes, contrary to what social media has engendered in terms of dumbing us all down, people can walk and chew gum at the same time. People are able to have two apparently contradictory ideas in their head at the same time. So let's give that a whirl on this episode of Bald and Bloviating. I am your bald, bloviating host, Mookie Spitz, focusing on the era of the troll and the ascendancy of Trump and Musk and their kind, and the bromance and breakup, not of the century, under normal standards, traditional standards, certainly would be, but basically the pissing match of the week. Because everything is changing so quickly. Bright lights cast long shadows, wrote Carl Jung, who understood that Taoist yin and yang is akin to the duality of our conscious and unconscious minds. Cooler than Freud and less sex obsessed, Jung depicted the ongoing battle between our dueling inner selves not only as the source of mental illness, but the crucible of creativity and genius. As Elon illustrates, arguably more than most, you really can't have one without the other. We always read and scratch our chins at the seemingly contradictory, almost absurdist biographies of people considered geniuses, or at least mavericks and titans in their respective fields. Kurt Gödel, for example, the great granddaddy of logic. Albert Einstein used to knock on this guy's door at his little house in Princeton and take him for a walk. I know that films like The Beautiful Mind popularize the eccentric, crazy genius, but Kurt Gödel wins the award. He literally measured every gram of food that he consumed and then excreted. I'm not kidding. He ended up starving himself to death because he was paranoid about being poisoned. He married a Berlin stripper hooker who became his doting wife and caregiver, to the point where the fellow professors at Princeton shunned this genius and his loving caregiver because of her sullied reputation. And as I'm saying, Albert Einstein knocked on this guy's door to get him out of the house. Kurt Gödel. I bring him up through the lens of this Jungian duality between eccentricity, borderline madness, and creative genius. It's ubiquitous to the point of being cliche, but like all cliches, stereotypes, kernels of truth root the essence of the light and the dark when it comes to human nature. I mean, if we think about it, we're each terrible at some things, terrific at other things. Old school self-improvement focused on trying to improve what we're bad at, while the current and arguably more effective trend is to ignore our deficiencies and concentrate on getting even better at what we're naturally good at and like to do. The result is damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead as your best self. I don't know if you've had a corporate job or you at any point in your career voluntarily or were forced to take the Strength Finder assessment. This was a quiz of sorts where you were presented with real world little vignettes and you were asked to rate or rank how you would respond given these circumstances. And it would compile the data and analyze it and then prioritize your top 5 traits from a pool of about 33. And these included what you would usually assume to be traits associated with human capacity, productivity, and management and work. Creativity, teamwork, relationships, planning, ideation. And the goal here was to identify the unique mix of what you were good at with this idea, and I think it's brilliant, that you should just ignore the shit that you're bad at. And why? Well, you're bad at it, so you hate to do it. And life is short, and resources are scarce, and everyone is unique. And teams, work teams, relationships, what have you, work best when they're complementary. And like the Greek ideal shared in Plato's Republic, a just society is where everyone acts and contributes according to their innate station in life. So nobles will be nobles, slaves will be slaves. And the just city was where the nobles could be nobles and the slaves would be slaves. Now, we look at that as archaic, hierarchical oppression, but it's the same damn point when it comes to identifying who you naturally are and then aligning oneself to circumstances that best match those characteristics. So, through that old model, a nobleman need not get better at being a slave, and a slave has no right to be a nobleman. Elevate that to what we would consider a more humanistic, egalitarian, and functional approach. And if you are naturally a planner, naturally detail oriented, naturally anxious and focused on just getting shit done, then a strategic, creative, artistic role is simply not for you. And you would be wasting all your time if instead of getting even better at what you're good at, spending time and energy to refine the skills that you are naturally good at and therefore naturally love to do and do more of it. You do more of it, you get better at it. It's a positive feedback loop, as opposed to doing stuff that you hate, not improving, and expending the opportunity costs of working on stuff you suck at to no productive end, while you're ignoring the opportunity to get even better and shine even more brightly at what you are good at. Excellent, excellent stuff. So how's that related to what we're talking about? Well, more is more in our culture. So why hold back? The exuberant display of obnoxious individualism has blitzkrieged since Trump ascended to the presidency, legitimizing and validating an ends justifying the means morality that not only ignores perceived weaknesses and deficiencies, but elevates and inverts them into their own strengths. Up is down and down is up. So, on the one hand, you have the Strength Finder assessment, which focuses on just doing what you're good at. Check. That works wonders for personal and professional growth and development. Now, what I am mentioning here is that there's a similar attitude that comes with dialing up what's perceived as societally negative qualities, at least according to the mores and norms and perceived values, the context of the content. And then you got folks like Trump and like Musk who basically say, screw this. I'm good at what I'm good at, and I'm a narcissist, god damn it, and I am going to let loose. And by letting loose, I am not necessarily doing myself a disservice. And in our attention hungry society, with the digital tsunami of content, I'm not only cutting through the noise, but I'm building a following of folks who want to do what I do. They want to be me. Now, the logical and inevitable culmination of accepting that inherent duality and indulging in what works best becomes that kind of shameless pragmatism when looked at through that lens. Today's movers and shakers are often jaw-dropping terrific at some things and alarmingly terrible at other things. And we not only take their contradictions for granted, but have come to expect nothing less from their success. Now, the result is infantilizing and celebrating terrible people who do terrific things, thereby normalizing their shadows and turning them into the light. Our society has become so enamored by money and power and the people who wield them that the rich and powerful have redefined not only the nature of wealth and influence, but the standards by which we judge all of society. So sure, emphasize your strength and ignore your weaknesses, but with that spirit of going for it, and with that pragmatic methodology of highlighting that which works, coupled with our social media engine of content creation and distribution, we wind up with the crazy world we live in now. We have our enfant terribles, the idiot savants who are able to apparently do such amazing things, and yet their weaknesses, the glaring holes in their behavior, their norm destroying tendencies, aren't ignored, but they're flipped into perceptions of strength. What an amazing bringing together of opposites. Carl Jung himself would be astonished, akin to bringing Leonardo da Vinci back and putting him on the tarmac of a modern airport. Wow. I thought some of this might be possible, but I'm still astonished that it has come to this. Now, what's behind all of this, clinically, if you will? And what might that diagnosis reveal about today's troll and our society overall? Well, Down syndrome was named after the doctor who clinically diagnosed the condition in 1887, John Langdon Down, who also coined the term idiot savant, French for a learned idiot, to describe the condition. Associated with spectrum disorders now like autism and Asperger's, even though the new DSM kind of wraps all of this into the autism spectrum disorder. It's become unfashionable and I believe even politically incorrect to refer to someone as having Asperger's. ASD is the new acronym, and it acknowledges that spectrum, albeit, if you ask me, and I'm not a doctor, nor do I play one on a podcast, it's not just a range of behaviors, but there are qualitative differences in the types of spectrum. So I think we need multivariate analysis here. We need to add a dimension to that spectrum. It's not just mild to moderate to severe. You could wrap all this under one broad designation, but they're different types. But I digress. Anyway, the oxymoron of the learned idiot describes contradictory attributes within a complex, often perplexing person. Now, it gets messy when you air quote diagnose somebody, and it's easy and tempting to go full Nietzschean on this, where to what extent do our societies and the doctor's subjective values, grounded in morality, even influence our assessment of who is sane or insane, rational or irrational, criminal or civil? Michel Foucault comes to mind as well, if we want to go full intellectual, and his obsession with a society and its view of criminality and justice and punishment and incarceration. But again, I digress. Anyway, Donald Trump and Elon Musk, by this definition, are idiot savants in that they are off the charts terrific at their respective jobs, while being similarly terrible in terms of the behaviors they exhibit while doing it. Now, I need to cut in here and say, I am being, as far as I can stress, apolitical in this. When I am calling Trump and Musk an idiot savant, I am not doing this in a derogatory way, nor do I wish to equivocate or in any way tie their politics or their ideologies with this notion of mental illness or aberrant behavior. I am not talking about their ideas per se, their politics. I'm talking about their behavior as idiot savants. And when I say they are terrible in terms of those behaviors, I am talking about specifically bullying, ad hominem attacks, bending, twisting, distorting, and ignoring the truth. Now, you can similarly say that all politicians and all leaders do it, but they do it exponentially more and exponentially more intensely and intensely, to the point where that behavior is qualitatively different than anyone who has come before them, as evinced by the application of these behaviors to their very success, both that application and their success off the charts. Apply just a little bit of common sense here and try to get over any feeling that I am picking on them. Historically, and I wasn't born yesterday and neither were you, nobody, repeat, nobody comes close to exhibiting these behaviors on the one hand and being so public. And that is facilitated obviously by the technology, which is uniquely available to them, coupled with their idiot savant personalities. That's what I'm getting at here. We live in historic times embodied, in my opinion, by these two people, irrespective and regardless of ideology per se. So I just want to caveat all of this. Now, both of these guys seem to have enormous chips on their shoulders. And being asshole trolls, and I mean that with all the respect in the world, they've become synonymous with a personal identity and professional branding and modus operandi that embodies the idiot savant as our new heroic figure. And by heroic figure, you could put anti-hero if you want. But I define a hero as someone who is courageous, hell-bent, and relentless on attaining their objectives, and is, by want of circumstance, divine intervention, or what have you, to embody the dynamism and forces of their age to do it, to do whatever it is they've set out to do, and do it on a grand stage in a grand way where every aspect of it is over the top. So I think it's safe to say that Elon Musk and Donald Trump embody these two characteristics. Now, I've been equating these two so far in terms of them both being idiot savants, being off the chart stellar in certain areas and completely off the rails in others. But there's a difference. There's a key difference between Trump and Musk. And in my opinion, the former president is all smoke and mirrors. And the latter, real life Tony Stark, has actually revolutionized three industries. One is all bullshit artist. The other is half bullshit artist and half genius. Now, to me, that's an enormous difference and a confusing but meaningful one. The danger is treating them exactly the same. Now, don't get me wrong here either. Trump has his own types of genius. Clearly, he understood the pulse of the American people and got his ass elected president of the United States with limited resources. He was a complete outsider, and he utterly wrecked the political GOP playing field for starters, and then actually defeated a legacy Democrat with incomparable name recognition, which, albeit backfired on her to a certain extent, but Trump defeated Hillary Clinton. Trump destroyed the Clinton dynasty. And then Trump 2.0, after Biden, He destroyed the Obama legacy because the whole Kamala campaign did their best to try to bring back Obama in spirit, in policy, and that failed as well. So Trump is a genius when it comes to understanding what the American people wanted, needed, expected, and could rally around at that moment. But they are different kinds of geniuses in that beyond the communication and messaging, Musk has actually launched rockets and satellites and built a car company and transformed e-commerce. And you can go on and say that he didn't think of any of these ideas and he had partners that he then shunned. But there's no doubt that whatever the fuck this guy has been doing, he has facilitated the revolution in e-commerce, automobiles, and space, arguably the three most difficult industries to do that in. Now, let's look at Henry Ford, Thomas Edison, and Walt Disney for counterpoint and for comparison, all of whom were rabid racists, alarming anti-Semites, among many other terrible things. Look it up. Don't take my word for it. And let's not forget Michael Jackson. Yes, a pedophile. While in parallel, automobiles, light bulbs, Mickey Mouse, and moonwalking and some of the greatest pop music in history have all been terrific contributions to the world. And as a society, we need to maintain and grow the maturity to understand the difference between the person and the product. We mix that shit up all the time. We cancel people. We expect celebrities and industry movers and shakers to somehow be less human and more accountable than the rest of us. And then we throw the baby out with the proverbial bathwater because our feelings are hurt when the values exuded by these imperfect idiot savants become manifest to the point where we seem to have no choice but to cross our own boundaries and get confused in the process and mix up who they are with what they do with the benefit provided to society. We're still 5 years old when it comes to this. I'm not saying that they should not be held accountable if they do hurt other people, ostensibly break the law. But you know what I'm talking about in terms of compounding accomplishment with personality. It's stupid. Now, in no manner does such a perspective absolve these leaders, these movers, these shakers, as I mentioned, of more obligation and ethical accountability. I'm merely pointing out the ubiquity of this duality. Look in the mirror. Who have you wronged in your life? And I'm not saying that on my own Hobby Lobby horse. I've upset people. I've broken hearts. I've acted like an asshole. I have done what I could have or should have done better. I've paid for it in droves. And similarly, I have been shat upon and abused and mistreated. I have made people jealous with my intellect, and I have been taken advantage of because of my often childish clinging to the notion, contrary to this rant, that I somehow believe that everyone has everyone else's best interests at heart. I'm Pollyanna. I'm naive. I'm overly excitable and enthusiastic. And my enemies and my competition have thrown all of this in my face every chance that they had. Now, this is not true confessions on my part for the sake of some emotional catharsis in the moment here. I'm just illustrating that I'm as fucked up as everybody else. And what often happens is when we point the finger in those glass houses, as it were, the intent is to distract others from our own vulnerability, bullshit, and bad habits. So let's dispel the notion that Elon Musk is inherently any better or worse than the asshole who lives next door, or necessarily the asshole who's looking back at you in the mirror. No offense. So again, I'm pointing out the ubiquity of the shittiness of the human condition and its inherent duality. And I'm also trying to highlight how ability often exacerbates the best and worst qualities found in these entrepreneurial mavericks. It's just dialed up to 11. Your asshole neighbor can only be asshole to a point because they've got minimal influence. Imagine if they ran corporate businesses. Imagine if they revolutionized industries. And to the point of this rant overall, imagine them having access to a global platform that they paid $44 billion for just so they can rant and troll and share conspiracy theories and lie and distort and influence people, all in the name of eventually saving the human race by getting to Mars. Because if poverty is a rationalization for the starving artist to stubbornly and relentlessly keep churning out whatever the fuck they think is beautiful, and I speak from personal experience in that way, or you have the zillionaire troll unloading on everybody to accomplish his or her own ends. It's really kind of an expression of the same thing now, isn't it? But that all said, the onus is on us to differentiate terrific from terrible and appreciate the engines of perfect imperfection. Back to Nietzsche, beyond good and evil, the birth of tragedy. I love that guy. I was always a big Nietzsche guy because end of the philosophical day, Nietzsche destroyed the house of cards that was built on the tacit assumption that good is synonymous with beautiful, which is equated with truth. If you peel away the layers, you see ugliness and evil and hatred and jealousy. And it's in that frothy mix of shittiness that amazing things happen. A great movie brings you to tears, makes you laugh, makes you cry, makes you cringe. Heaven, as David Byrne sang in the Talking Heads, is a place where nothing ever happens. They always play my favorite song. Speaking of imperfect perfection, let's take a walk on the wild side for a second. Bear with me. This is going to pull right back and into exactly what I've been ranting about, the world of BDSM, the fetishized ecosystem of bondage, domination, sadomasochism, where roles are precisely defined. You have a dom who is dominant. You have a sub who is submissive. Now, many interesting paradoxes and contradictions are evinced when you delineate roles and behaviors in this kind of way. And this rant is not about the fetish community. But I want to focus on one of these roles, and that's the brat. A brat is a submissive who is an asshole to their dominant partner. Why? Because they can, and because they expect, after they express their brattiness, a good spanking. This is interesting. It's a thing. So once again, a brat is actually a submissive who acts out, is a pain in the ass until the dominant is over it and administers punishment. That is the kink cycle. Now, I'm alleging that Elon Musk is actually, despite and because of his status as the world's richest man, the trailblazer of 3 industries, and recently right-hand man of the President of the United States. Elon Musk is a fetishized brat who is terrific when a dominant in his areas of expertise, namely e-commerce and automotive and space, and terrible as a submissive where he's weak, namely media, politics, and punditry. And what do I mean by terrific when he's dominant? Well, again, regardless of what you think his role actually was, there's no doubt that PayPal and especially Tesla and SpaceX would not exist in remotely their current forms within this universe without Elon Musk. No doubt about it. Would you have an EV company that broke free or through? Maybe, but not years later. Would we have 7,000, 8,000 satellites covering the planet in internet access without Musk? I don't think so. He's terrific where he's dominant in areas of expertise. How? Fake it till you make it. Overpromise and underdeliver. Get people excited about ideas. Sell it in. Sell in the vision. Get billions of dollars from thousands of investors who believe in your vision. And then actually deliver. It'll be late, and it might not be the way you promised. Cue up the Tesla factory. What was it? The Gigafactory, where he promised completely automated construction of his EV vehicles, only to end up pitching tents literally in the parking lot to get the Model 3 actually out the door. But he did it. Where he's dominant, he rocks it. But I'm alleging here that he's terrible as a submissive, and here I mean media, politics, and punditry. And you could say that I'm an idiot for saying that he's terrible there because he has millions of followers and millions of minions who think he's a fucking genius, and he's exerting tremendous influence through his tweets alone. But what I mean by terrible as a submissive is that his media, his politics, and his punditry are fraught with a brand of bullshit which is qualitatively less effective than those of Donald Trump. Stick to what you're good at. And the proof is in the pudding. I ruminated about these aspects of Musk prior to the 2024 election. And lo and behold, Trump won, and Musk became his wingman in the Oval Office, the head of Doge. And Musk went wild in the government, and he was Trump's deputy, loyal deputy, until what? The terribleness of his behavior as a submissive brat became evident. So I made these points before we had this oscillating roller coaster of a trajectory of their partnership and their relationship. So if nothing else, retrospectively and fairly recently, this proves my point, or at least helps illustrate what I mean by strengths and weaknesses, and why Elon Musk, paradoxically and ironically, is a fetishized brat. You wouldn't think that now, would you? Let me go in a little deeper. Like any brat, and I'm talking about the classic BDSM brat, who is obnoxious and irritating and pisses off the dominant to the point where they accomplish both their goals. The dominant beats the shit out of the brat to put the brat back in their place. And the brat, being a submissive, wants exactly that to happen. Beat me, bore me, don't ignore me. And like that brat, Musk is a whiny bitch with the ultimate intent of getting punished. Now consider his acquisition of Twitter, now apropos X, and its loss of tens of billions in value. He sucks. He sucks running X. Once again, this is not a political observation. I've got nothing against Elon Musk, and I give credit where credit is due. He rocked e-commerce, automotive, space. I'm not criticizing Musk because I have an agenda. I'm observing as a critic of culture what he's good at and what he sucks at, and he sucks running X. His CEO quit last week. Of course she did. Everyone was astonished that she made it that far. He promised an integrated engine of social media, artificial intelligence, and e-commerce. Now, don't get me wrong. Those could actually happen. Grok 4 apparently is rocking it, and it's not over until he's over, and Elon has been distracted. But what I am positing here is that media, politics, and punditry is not Elon's forte, and he's being a brat. And now consider how the unnecessary and ridiculous oscillation of Tesla value as a direct consequence of his big mouth, including conflict of interest, including alienating huge consumer segments. He lost the libtards. He lost the green people. He lost the people who want to buy Teslas in the first place. Now all you have left, it seems, are a bunch of MAGA maniacs with more money who want to show off or wanted to show off their allegiance to the Trump Musk dynamic duo by buying a horrific and unnecessary Cybertruck. Boo-yah. Or as the Gen Z people apparently say, slay. They slay it. But it's all bullshit, at least at this point. And now if we look at his political shenanigans, they're shamelessly hypocritical, unabashedly authoritarian, and deliberately unnerving. A self-proclaimed free speech advocate, Elon the Brat, jumps into bed with Donald the Dom, suggesting the National Guard and Army should arrest anyone who disagrees with him, unleashing the cops in a national purge to clear out the vermin, supporting the far-right party in Germany. Once again, I'm not being political. Go ahead and support fascists in Germany. Repeat, fascists not in Wyoming, not in Iceland, but fascists in Germany. Go ahead, Elon. Go for it. Whatever's on your mind. But what I'm revealing here is it's the work of a brat. He means to upset you. And what I am alleging is he wants eventually to be punished. Now, conversely, marvel at Musk's astonishing accomplishments that I've been mentioning in space. The 23-story Starship booster, although the last couple ones blew up, they can't seem to get the second stage going. But that's just a little speed bump, right? The things land in reverse. It's like science fiction in real life. He's without a doubt a savant. He's without a doubt changed the world. And without a doubt, if he would just shut the fuck up and do these companies, he would be that man behind the curtain. The less that he would bloviate, the more mysterious he would be and the more respect he would get and arguably deserved. Now, Carl Jung, back to him, he reintroduced the Greek term enantiodromia to describe the importance of empowering psychological opposites to run their course. This is the why behind the Musk fetishized brattiness. Musk is both bratty troll and industry titan, annoying, snotty jerk, and real-life Iron Man. Affixing himself to Trump is the brat. And landing on Mars will eventually be the Titan. Now, I don't know why he doesn't go to the moon first. I know there's no atmosphere. There's hardly much of an atmosphere on Mars. But I digress. Elon, I know you're not listening, but if you are, why Mars? It's so far, bro. Just put a base on the moon, crawl, walk, run. Anyway, he's half bullshit artist and half genius. And what I'm saying is, don't cancel him, just understand him and realize that Musk is, to quote another Nietzsche-ism, human, all too human. And of course, the other person who is human, all too human, is Donald J. Trump. And as recent current events, and now current events are nanosecond to nanosecond, tweet to tweet, as we know. But as we've seen, they bromanced it up and not surprisingly had a big old breakup. And all of this, in retrospect, reinforces what I'm ranting about here. which is Elon couldn't help but overstep his boundaries with Donald. Sure, he didn't like the big, beautiful bill because it did undercut everything Doge is doing. But come on, look at the track record. Look at what Trump does. He blows the bank. He doesn't give a shit about balancing the books. When did he ever? And of course, Trump loves tariffs, especially if he can control them by his kingly decree. Trump wakes up one morning 80%, 20%, steel, tech, whatever. Or you can be like Mark Andreessen and have high hopes that a guy like Trump will finally clear out the woke intelligentsia of Silicon Valley. Poor Mark, starting companies and having his own staff scheming and woking all around him, building up resentment over all these years to the point he threw his hat in the ring with the ultimate Dom Don. But Andreessen is not a brat. Musk is a brat. And Musk is a brat who also wanted it all because, of course, that's what the brat thinks they want. And when Trump refused to approve of Isaacson to run NASA, who, by the way, was a terrific choice for head of NASA. Look him up, Isaacson. He would have been a brilliant head of NASA. Trump threw that in Musk's face, humiliating him, the final straw. And what did the brat do? But the brat went back to the brat nest and tweeted insults hurled at the Dom. And what happened? The Dom punished the brat. And now the brat is behaving. And now the brat, forced to behave, is going off and seeking new Doms to be bratty with, starting his own party. But he's got the SpaceX contracts, and Tesla's in the shitter. And all this is going on. What does this say about Doms and subs and brats and Trump and Elon? Well, let's cascade back to the point of my rant, which is we are in the era of the troll. And we are at the point where to attain attention and grow attention and to thrive, let alone survive in this digital ecosystem with a tsunami of content that I've called the wall. You need to break through that wall. You need to make your own walls. And so far, Trump 1, Elon 0, and that should come as no surprise if we understand Elon to be the fetishized brat that he is. Another way to look at Trump's inevitable victory, at least for the time being, is to listen to Sam Harris interviewing Mark Cuban on one of his pre-election 2024 podcasts. And what Mark Cuban says about Trump is very, very telling. Quote, he's unethical. He's not bright. He can be easily bought. He's very transactional. He doesn't understand his own policies, and he makes no effort to learn. Now, these are the exact qualities that drew Musk to Trump, assuming that he could work the Donald, the transactional president, and Musk could get what he wants. Musk could outsmart Donald Trump. Everyone, after all, advising Trump acknowledges that he's impressionable, running the government like his business like a local mobster HQ. Trump is on the phone at all hours, getting all his advice and information from his inner circle, making his next big decision on the fly, and sometimes based on whomever he talked to last. Trump is also the consummate showman, most comfortable when at the center of attention. The more attention, the bigger the crowds, the better. That makes him almost pathologically extroverted, basing his values and his sense of self-worth on how other people view him. Seeking positive reinforcement from those around him are empowered. Also very Jungian, the introvert and the extrovert. The introvert, Elon, the extrovert, Trump, match made in heaven, right? Wrong. Trump's mercurial nature and proven impressionability make him the perfect sucker, or at least that's what Elon thought, for an insatiably power-hungry mofo like Musk. Like Iago, Jay Gatsby, Tom Ripley, all of whom hustled their marks. Elon hitched his ride to the Trump train because he knew that once in the Oval Office, he'd have a chance and a choice opportunity to mold and manipulate the master. Unethical, dim-witted, corrupt, transactional, and ignorant are the bad leadership's traits Musk favors in a president that he thought he could convince to do his bidding. The perfect complement to Donald the entertainer would be Elon the doer, right? That introverted, awkward, autism spectrum disordered maverick. Trump would be the useful idiot for the idiot savant to gain even more control. Well, in principle, that seemed to be a blueprint for the ascendancy and dominion of Elon Musk. But as it turned out, what happened? Well, the Brat got the better of Elon. Rewind the clock, and Elon, with retrospective insight and a kernel of mature wisdom, would have looked at that situation much, much more pragmatically. You can say that he's too idealistic, that he believes too much truly in balancing the U.S. budget, that he really sees America as the flagship for the human species, himself, of course, at its helm, but a healthy America, a robust America would get us to Mars. And Elon, I believe, truly believes that we need to get out into space to save our asses on the one hand, but arguably equally, if not more importantly, after we do the basics of saving our asses, populate the galaxy. If you do the math, right now we've got 9 billion people, 9,000 million people on the planet, stuck basically. And if we acquire the technology to planet hop within our solar system and eventually even go interstellar physically, then we could have a septillion humans, octillion, a billion humans. Why not? That's the goal of a species, right? Take over the ecosystem, kick ass, take names. Elon really believes this shit. I believe this shit. I think he's right. We got to get off the planet for our own protection. We don't want to go extinct. And we also want to rule the roost as best we can. Otherwise, what's the damn point? We need our Darwinian objectives realized through the technology that has gotten us here to begin with. AI Armageddon, genetic Armageddon, notwithstanding. So I really believe Elon felt that he could turn America around through the tool that was Donald Trump. That's the ideologue Elon Musk. But what he failed to appreciate and foresee In such stark contrast to the brilliance of his risk-taking to hitch his wagon to the Trump train and his foresight and intuition that once Trump survived the attempt on his life, the chances of victory were exponentially increased. Elon called it. He took a risk. He invested $250 million or more of his own money, helped get Trump elected. Arguably, Trump would have been elected anyway. I don't know. I don't have the data, but it definitely didn't hurt. And Elon was in the power seat, and everything seemed to be going his way. And he was willing to sacrifice the success of his own businesses, at least Tesla, to accomplish this higher, loftier goal of plugging himself into the US government, in the process, saving the US government through the cost cuts, through balancing the budget, and to the point of his Isaacson pick, doing NASA the right way and getting us back into space in a big way. Elon saw this as the future. And you know what? I mean, in all objective fairness, it's just my opinion. It's not a bad vision, at least in principle. You can argue about Doge and its tactics and its strategies. You can argue about Elon's aggressive, chaotic management style. But balancing the budget, you betcha. $33,000 billion in debt, the interest payments equivalent to our defense budget every year. It's got to give. The overall goal of getting us into space, reactivating NASA. This is exciting stuff. When Elon is high on DMT or mushrooms or whatever the fuck, then he is thinking these thoughts. And he, more than anyone else on the planet, has the facility to help, in his eye, and to a certain extent mine, save the human race. He is Musk Messiah. So he really believes this shit. And he felt that his actions would precipitate the course of events that would balance the US budget, get NASA reactivated, and create a brave new world and a new generation of American hegemony and space, the final frontier being explored again. Woohoo. But that all backfired. Here's the point of my rant. It backfired. Why? Because Musk is a brat. He misbehaved. Again, if he would have had a little bit more foresight and less Pollyanna wishful thinking about Dom Donald, then he would realize that the promises of balancing the budget were a shit show, illusion, and a lie. Too many mouths to feed, most of whom are already full, for starters. And Trump would just do his Trump thing anyway. And if the brat could get himself to behave, he could continue doging his way into whatever, refocus on his businesses, and just set loose his 21-year-old programmers with laptops downloading all of our Social Security information and Starlinking them to who knows where. But if Elon had the capacity to shut the fuck up and behave and not be a brat, then that relationship would still be cooking. Trump would be off his own reservation. Elon would still be plugged in. Trump wouldn't have pulled the plug on his NASA guy. I don't think he would have. He doesn't give a shit who runs NASA. Trump pulled the NASA guy and humiliated Musk because Musk was bloviating about the big, beautiful bill. You don't do that to the Dom. Why did he do it? Because he's a brat. And maybe, just maybe, like all brats, Elon wanted to get punished. End of the day, talking about this duality of nature, the shadow side of Musk's own narcissism precipitates situations that fuck this guy. And now he's back to Tesla. He's got to focus. The robo taxis seem to have potential. it could turn into the multi-trillion-dollar market cap company that some investors think it inevitably will. And then, as I mentioned, AI investments. Who knows? What if Musk does the simulations of evolutionary emergent consciousness building tech that results in the brain in a box? Could be. Musk's story is not over yet. So even if he blew the shot with the Donald, amazing things can and likely will happen. But I'm illustrating Musk as the telltale and cautionary tale of the brat, the fetishized brat, within this broader context of the troll. As a society, we've all become, by analogy, techno brats. We're bratty online, we're abusive, we're bullying. We claim truth is no longer foundational, objective, and absolute. And we all act like brats. And we're all waiting in our own way to get punished. And maybe, here's my last point, that will be our collective salvation when all of us, as digitalista, social media, freak show, fetishized brats, get slapped down in ways we've always wanted to be disciplined, and we get attention that way, we'll finally calm down a little bit and be able to appreciate what we have and maybe discover better ways to communicate with each other. And hopefully, frankly, and again, I don't mean to be political, but better ways to govern and manage businesses. What do you think? Thanks for listening to this bald guy bloviating. And go ahead, call me a brat. I deserve it. And yeah, maybe I want to be punished